alone is not enough. We have to have faith. And we have to grow our faith. When I first was given Autobiography of a Yogi, well, the first time, I opened it up and I read something and I said, not for me. And I gave it back. And then I came to Ananda and I read it in 3 days straight. I couldn't put it down. And when I finished it, the time was right. My karma was such that I could accept it. I could understand that I needed this book the second time I got it. And when I held it in my hands, it was more than a book. I could feel Yogananda's vibration. And more than anything, I felt, I can trust this person. More than I've ever been able to trust anyone in my life, I believe this person. And that belief started me on this path. I didn't know if all the tools that were given on this path would work for me. Maybe they would work for everybody else in the whole world, but maybe they wouldn't work for me. I didn't know, but I just had my belief. I just hung on to that heart feeling that I could trust Yogananda. And so I took these tools that were given, affirmations, prayer, chanting, Hong Sa technique, Om technique, Kriya Yoga, yoga postures. I took them all just as though someone had given me a tool belt and said, okay, now build this house, and this is a hammer. And you go, well, which way do I hold it from? And you just start working with the tools until they become friends, until they start working for you, until you can hold that hammer and flip it in the air and catch it, and you know what to do with that hammer. It works for you. It's your buddy. And these teachings are like that too. You can't expect to just get Hong Sa and then perfect it that day. You have to keep working with it through the years. Keep working with it. I'll mention this story. One time Swami was in seclusion. I hadn't seen him for a week or so that he'd been in seclusion, and then I got a phone call. He said, Nirmala, do you realize you can find God just with Hong Sa? And I thought, I better start doing it again. I'd gotten Kriya Yoga by that time. I thought Hong Sa was baby Kriya. I didn't need that anymore. We need it all. We need all of these techniques. You get to the point on this spiritual path where you feel a mood happening or you feel a fear gripping you, and you start going through your tool belt. Okay, what do I need here? Okay, affirmations. Let's just kill this with affirmation. And you do, and it works. And your belief starts to grow into faith. We can't presume, just like that poor teacher at the waterfall, presuming that he had that spiritual power. And truly, we need spiritual power. It is a survival tool in this world. We can overcome every challenge. We have all the tools, we just have to use them. And it's important too that we, as we work with these things that are given to us, it's like Master just laid out a whole banquet table with every kind of delicacy imaginable and just said, go and feast. That's what we have. We have every food, we have every tool, we have everything that we need. He said if you practice 1/100th of what I've given you, you'll find God. Find that delicacy that appeals to you and go deep into it. I have a friend, I used to give him singing lessons years ago. Tone deaf. Deaf, just could not match a tone to save his soul. However, if I just said to him, chant Om, pick your own note. You don't have to match any of my notes. Pick your own note and chant Om. He has the most beautiful, resonant voice ever. Just a deep, rich, beautiful voice. He just can't match. So I said, well, just chant Om on your own. He went deep into the Om technique. He made it an art form of his own. He explored avenues that I'd never dreamed of with the Om technique. Do that with whatever touches your heart. Prayer, affirmations, yoga, kriya, hong sa, Om, chanting, anything that appeals to you. Or just study Master's words. Be a jnana yogi. Just go deep into the philosophy. Whatever it is, whatever appeals to your nature, go for it. Cling to it. It will save your life. And never think, I've been doing Hong Sa for 40 years and where have I gotten? Never think, oh, that person is better at it than I am. Or, I can never do this. I'm still struggling. I still have a restless mind. Dharmadas and I have taught classes in European countries, in India, with all those many, many languages. There's, I think, 17 or 21 official languages, and then there's all the dialects. And in Italy, in Russia, in people whose languages we didn't understand, we would have a translator and people would ask us questions, and they would always ask, how can I meditate? My mind is restless. You can. You can meditate. Just as this reading says, let the meditating yogi, whenever the mind, fickle and restless, wanders off from its concentration, let the meditating yogi withdraw it resolutely, spurning every distraction, no matter how alluring. It doesn't matter how alluring. Your mind can think, oh, I put the casserole in the oven, but I didn't turn on the oven. There's all kinds of little alluring thoughts that come. Slash them with the sword of discrimination. Set your will. You can do it. You only have to choose to do it. I think one of the easiest things to do is pray. And don't be thinking, oh, well, it has to sound really pretty, it has to have flowery words, it has to be like whispers from eternity. Unless it's beautiful, God won't hear it. Not true. He's there. He's hearing you even before you pray. He's hearing everything. He understands every heart's feeling before you understand it. So you don't have to make it pretty to talk to God. Just cry out to him. How many times my prayer has only been, help. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Just make it from your heart. and pray for other people. I think that's one of the real turning points of the spiritual path, is to be able to, in every situation, remember God enough to pray for the person who is bothering you. Whoever it is who's giving you grief, don't think about, oh, this is wrong, they're wrong, I'm right. Don't get into any of that stuff. Just start praying. Yogananda ji. Change their hearts. Illuminate their brain. Fill them with your love. Whatever it is, let it spring from your heart, but just remember to draw him into whatever situation is there. The Festival of Light, actually, is one of those beautiful prayers. So often we're so busy we just stay for part of the service and we think, okay, well, I've heard the Festival of Light. I don't need to hear it again. But it's like the Ananda version of the Lord's Prayer. You can say it over and over and over. Because really, the Festival of Light is the essence of our path. And it helps to draw that remembrance into our consciousness. Oh yes, this is the soul's journey. Oh yes, this is how and why these gurus came to us here in the West. I remember now, this is the purpose of my life. That mission, that revolt, that quest, that redemption. All of that is my journey on the spiritual path. It's really a celebration of this path and a deep, heartfelt prayer. I can say many things about Swami Kriyananda. He was the one who started the Ananda Communities movement. He was a fantastic lecturer. He spoke all these languages, wrote all these books, 400 pieces of music. I mean, you can go on and on and on, but the way I remember him best is as a poet. He was a wonderful, wonderful poet. And the Festival of Light is that beautiful prose and poetry. So go deep into that prayer. In every moment of your lives, feel like you have God by the hand, because truly, he is always with you. There is never a time when he's separate from you. You can't be separate from him. He made every atom in your body. He gave you every thought. Our thoughts are not our own, you know. We tune into a level of consciousness, and we can choose that level of consciousness. And with the tools of our path, we can change it. We can uplift ourselves. So use these tools and do concentrate. I keep going back every day to the Hong Sa technique. Every day I try harder. Let's keep this concentrated for a little longer. We need that concentration. We can't accomplish anything in life unless we have it. So let's redouble our efforts. Let's make a deeper commitment to live in that joy, to remember who we are, and to find God in this lifetime.
This poetry that Nirmala is speaking of is very moving and very compelling when we think of the festival, it's the story of the soul. Yes, it's the story of our path. But it's also, yes, it's the story of the microphone that won't behave for whatever reason. Do you want me to try fiddling with this thing? Maybe I'll try fiddling with this thing. If it keeps on, I will. All right, well, we'll try our best. If you have faith and do not doubt, even your microphone will work. And if it doesn't, you pick another one or just speak louder. The Festival of Light has gems of realization woven all through it. Strands of gold, strands of light. And even fear, like shadows on a statue, gives light and substance to hope. Peace awaits you in the unknown. There's just every other line or every other paragraph, there's some little point of wisdom. And part of the reason that we do the festival every week is to draw that more deeply into our consciousness so that it remains there at critical moments. When the car accident happens, or when some other form of disaster strikes, it's the consciousness that is our sort of ambient level, the specific gravity, if you want to bring chemistry into it, of your consciousness. That's what we revert to. What is the kind of underlying level of consciousness? So you have a Gandhi being assassinated. What words come out of his mouth? Ram, Ram. He's chanting God as he's leaving the body. He's blessing the man who's sending him out of this world. How can you prepare for that? Well, I'll give you one hint. You can't do it in the last 5 minutes. Doesn't really work very well. That's an exam that you cannot cram for in the last hour. Because first of all, you don't even know which hour it's going to be. You know, in the Bible, Christ is saying, you know neither the day nor the hour when he will come. Which is to say, make it minute by minute by minute. Master had a different way of saying it that also expresses a deep meaning, and it comes from a different angle. He said the minutes are more important than the years. And which is to say, the years will take care of themselves if you get the minutes right. Get the minutes right. Focus on the minutes. Focus on now. This reading today is speaking of, if you have faith and doubt not, you can say to yonder mountain, be removed and, get out of my view. I want to see the ocean, or whatever it might be, and it will happen. Well, now, I don't know how many of you have moved mountains lately because your faith was strong and true, but yet, all of us, in one way or another, have moved mountains. The mountain may be that you get through the all-day meditation at Christmas, which is coming up on the 23rd of December, or the 19th, I think, is the previous Saturday, when we do a little slightly shorter version of it on a weekend day, which is a little easier for some people to come to. 8 hours. Oh my God, I could never sit for 8 hours. Of course, you don't have to sit for the whole 8 hours, but nevertheless, oh my goodness, Never mind that we work all day at sometimes excruciatingly tedious jobs, and that's 8 hours, and we kind of think nothing of it. Think of it as 8 hours in bliss. But once you go through that once or twice or 35 or 40 times, as some of us have done, oh, what's number 36 or number 41? You just sit down and you meditate. What's the big deal? That mountain got moved long ago. That faith is already been demonstrated. Belief is the beginning of faith. But unfortunately, in our language, we tend to confuse the two. Belief and faith sort of seem like the same thing. Faith is an actual realization. It's just that we take what we've realized and we apply it in a new way where we have never experienced it before. So there's a level of realization that began with belief. It got tested in our effort, in our openness to, going back to the affirmation, our openness to the process, and then it became a realized faith. Then God comes along and challenges us a little more and says, well, but what about over here? What do you say we get you in a situation where you have to raise the dead? Anybody raised the dead lately? That's another level of it. And yet, Christ says to us in the Bible, these things and greater shall you do. Wow. Well, he did some pretty amazing things, walking on water. And he says to Peter in the boat, come on, you're coming out here too. You get to walk on the water also. And Peter sort of goes out there and, starts to lose it at a certain point, starts to look down. They always tell you don't look down. Did you ever notice that? You're up on the high wire, you're way up in the tree, or you're, hanging off of whatever. Don't look down. There's a certain law in that. Don't look down. Stay with it. Stay with what you're doing. You look down and you go, oh my God, this is just terrifying. Think of all the times you've trusted God in your life. I think back to my days in construction where I had to walk on the top plate, which in many cases was 3.5 inches wide. Later on, it was 5.5 inches wide because we started building with 2x6s instead of 2x4s. But nevertheless, 5.5 inches wide is still not that wide. I mean, when they make you, if they should ever make you walk the line to see whether you are inebriated or not, that's kind of a top plate, and stay on the top plate. I remember hanging off of a building with a kind of a cord around my waist. This was in the days when the harnesses that are much more safe and elaborate that became a requirement for construction workers were not as prevalent, and certainly they were not required. I just had this thing wrapped around my waist, and my friend up at the top of the roof hanging on to my life. If I had, if he had just decided he had better things to do and let go, I wouldn't really be standing here. Or if I was, I might be sitting here in a wheelchair or something instead. We have to develop the trust to know that God holds our hand, as Nirmala was saying, holds on to our hearts, holds on to our lives. But that development is a gradual process that starts with belief. It comes to faith, and then it comes to the realization of that faith that can be applied in any area. Sooner or later, the Guru asks our breath, asks our life, not to take it from us, to give it back to us. But we have to be willing to release it. We have to be willing to offer it willingly. He won't tear it out of our, recently in the news, those of us who are vegetarians might have gloated a little because some organization, I forget even which one it was, came up with the research that said processed meat is bad for you, just flat out, causes cancer or it's correlated to cancer, anyway, whatever, it's bad, basically. And somebody in the comments down below was saying, essentially, I've given up smoking, I've given up alcohol, but you could pry that hamburger out of my cold, dead fingers. Well, in various ways, all of us have got the white knuckles around the steering wheel of life saying, yeah, I'm not going to let go for anything. Even if God is saying, will you just relax a little bit? Just chill out. I've got this all under control, and trust me, it's going to come out okay if you will allow me to work with this process in a certain way. Well, we have to work with that naturally. We have to grow into that, as Nirmala was saying. It does not come overnight. The perfection of Hong Sa in breathless ecstasy, well, it can happen today. Don't, you never want to put a limitation around that. I mean, numerous times we've taught meditation in one part of the world or another, and Swamiji also remarked at this. First day, beginning meditator, never meditated before in this lifetime. They go home, they practice, they have some breathless, incredible experience of going into the light, passing through the light, going into the infinite beyond. Oh, my goodness, they come back and it's like, well, did that, check. Sometimes they stay with it, sometimes it's like, well, yeah, that was really cool, that was really awesome. Guess I don't need to do that anymore. To have it, and to have it forever, that, as Nirmala was saying, that's our potential and our birthright. Have God, have that joy that can never be taken away from us. That's the mountain that we should really be asking to move. All of the ignorance, all of the delusion, all of the things that we've hung on to with white knuckles, let them all go, move them all out of the way, and have that infinite joy. That's what God is trying to give us, and that's what faith, belief growing into faith, that's what those things will give us. Let's exercise that potential in ourselves. Namaste.